Hi, I'm Paul Santinello. Welcome to the Upside, the show where we talk about all the good things going on in the town of Long Meadow. One of the things we're going to deviate a little bit today from, again, talking about the good things in Long Meadow, we're going to talk a little bit about politics. Today's show is brought to you by Gatorade. We just stole that sponsor from the Gerald Duquette show. Put up your dukes. They dropped him like a lead balloon. So I want to say thank you to Gerald for doing such a lousy show that you lost Gatorade to me. That's our second sponsor we picked up from Gerald. So with that said, a little promotion for Gatorade. Yeah. I wanted to welcome my guest.
Gerald, that was good.
For Gerald. For my guest, Tony Signoli. Tony is the president of A.L. Signoli Company, a political consultant firm based in Springfield, but basically working all over the world. So, Tony, I want to thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Today, we're going to talk about Super Tuesday. Today's March 8th. Super Tuesday just happened. So we're going to talk a little bit about Super Tuesday, the impact of the Republican primary, talk about some of the political races, especially with the U.S. Senate race going on here in Massachusetts, and then some other local happenings, or other political happenings, I should say. So, first of all, thank you for coming. And again, the results of Super Tuesday is Mitt Romney, depending on who you talk to, either won big or didn't win big. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because I thought a win is a win, except if it's a Republican primary, I guess, depending on which media outlet you're talking to and which spin meister you're also hearing from.
Exactly.
So, you know, what were your thoughts as a result of Super Tuesday?
It was a win. A win is a win. He continues on. He's getting the delegates that he needs. It's a long slog, you know, and sometimes that can be very difficult for folks within their party to watch. Mm-hmm. And folks get impatient and they get nervous. And I think a lot of folks, Republicans and some independents, they're antsy on getting to the fight, the real fight, which will be the Republican nominee versus Barack Obama. But it'll come. It'll come, and as short of a time frame as it may seem between the Republican convention and a final, you know, crowning of the nominee to that ultimate fight, it'll be here before we know it. It's not that much longer. He's continuing to get what he needs. And I think the piece of this, when you analyze it, when you take a look at Super Tuesday, even in the states that Romney lost, you had some huge numbers of folks in their exit polling and in polls even beforehand who said, I'm voting for Santorum because of this or that or a social issue, or I'm going to give this one to Newty. But ultimately, I think Mitt Romney is going to be the nominee. Mm-hmm. And I also think he's the person that's going to be able to beat Barack Obama. 44 to 48% in all those different states. That's all what they have to say, whether they voted for someone else or Romney. So he'll get there. It slogs on, and he's got all the Republican Party regulars that are there behind him. The Haley Barbers, you know, the newcomers who are grand new names like Christie and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And watch what he does with the Hispanic Latino vote as these next contests come up between the end of March and April. Watch Rubio. Watch how Rubio starts to get involved in this campaign.
And you know, and we were on another show, and we won't talk about that one on the air here, but we talked about what I particularly like is that there's actually is a primary process, and that it's not over.
Yeah.
Because I think if it was over before Super Tuesday, then what you have is you know, presumably Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama. What this does for Mitt Romney, or whoever the nominee is going to end up being, but it looks like Romney, is that it gives him his name in the paper every day still.
Yeah.
And it's not paid advertisements when they're covering you on the campaign trail, and it sharpens you up. And I correlated it to boxing, that you keep that, you know, when you're gearing up for the real fight, you do a lot of sparring. And the only way that, you know, if this, again, we're just, I think it was maybe the Monday before the primary vote, Super Tuesday, Mitt came out and said, I've made some mistakes on the campaign trail. I'm learning from them. And I think that's a good thing for a guy who's not accustomed to the national spotlight. I mean, he did run 4 years earlier, but this is now, he's the guy. The spotlight is on him. He was the up-and-comer the last time versus the lead dog. And I think it's a good thing because, I mean, I've seen this on the local level. When you have a primary, the people in the primary are getting talked about all the time, and you're over here waiting for the opponent, and you're not getting any press. So it's almost like a lot of people think that's the campaign. And and I agree with you that a lot of people that I know say, well, I'm going to vote for Santorum or Newt because I like those guys. But the flip side of it is I'm voting for Romney if he's the winner. And I think a lot of the exit polls, I think it was 80–90% of the people said we're with Romney if he wins. And and I'm sure that number will go up as some people just torqued off a little bit and that type of thing.
It becomes obvious. And the other part of this too is the universe of the vote. on Super Tuesday. Certainly it's just Republicans, and in a few of the states you got Democrats that were able to show up and cross over, and you get independent votes as well too. The universe gets larger as this heads into November, obviously, and if it becomes Romney versus Barack Obama, one of the things we're seeing right now, especially from John Zogby, I think arguably one of the best pollsters and prognosticators of what will be down the road of all the pollsters, and you take a look at what he calls his election day map. You know, he's already broken it down by color, blue and red. It's astonishing. This is a battle for Barack Obama, against whoever the nominee is. But it's really astonishing. You look to Super Tuesday, and you said it well. This whole thing up to Super Tuesday, the analogy you made to boxing before on that other show, that network show, was intriguing, because there you talked about better that you're, as a fighter, that you're sparring with folks who are up to your caliber, that you're able to fight with, not somebody just going to be able to dispatch with in practice session after practice session. That's what this is for Romney. If he were making these kinds of mistakes that he has to this point, that he admits to, you know, which is intriguing that he said that yesterday, with Barack Obama, some of them would be fatal. And you can see that Barack Obama is starting to engage him. On Super Tuesday, while Mitt is fighting in all those different states, sure, the president kind of offhandedly says, you know, good luck, Mitt, to him. That's kind of cute, kind of nice. But there was the bigger thing that happened on Super Tuesday, and that folks are talking about now and probably will for the next week. You had Mitt Romney come out the night before and say, Iran, I would send warships. I would begin. And so some will say he was pandering a little bit before the election. Some will say that was inexperience in a diplomatic kind of a sense or a strategic defense sense. But on the other side of it, it was about Barack Obama's opportunity to stand back and say, wait a second, there's the difference between him and me. I am the commander-in-chief, and no, you don't send warships. So whether you take Romney's side of it or Barack Obama's, or whatever folks may think, you know, it's intriguing that it's on Barack Obama's mind. He's going to engage with this guy, and it's beginning now. And you're right. If that engagement were happening all the time right now, you know, Mitt Romney would be taking some hits. These would be body blows in a real boxing match. Better that he's dealing with Santorum and Paul and Newt Gingrich to this point, and better that some of the gaffes have happened when and where they have, than down the road.
And I think, you know, there's the other side of this is that in the primary is that, you know, you've got Newt Gingrich who's over here, and, you know, regardless of the percentage of votes that he's getting, he's still a voice. He still has respect in the Republican community, even though he's not I think everybody realizes he's not going to be the nominee. But you got a guy out there talking about $4, $5 gallon of gas right now. That to me, what it does also is in this primary process is there's 3 or 4 Republican, and Ron Paul's, I think, an attack dog on everybody, not just Democrats. But is that you've got 3 people who are, you know, really saying, here's what the issues of the day are, folks. And that's 3 microphones that usually the incumbent, that Barack Obama, isn't really hearing from. You know, so what I'm saying, it's not that it's unfair. It's just that there's an advantage to Romney that you have Gingrich out here talking about $5 gasoline, and then you have Santorum out here talking about maybe some of the social issues, so that he doesn't have to necessarily engage that and take the heat for anything that falls out of that. So there's a, you know, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about this is that early on. We again on the other show we talked about this a little bit, and I said I was hearing from Democrats that they were salivating at Romney. You know, they wanted Mitt Romney. They wanted Mitt Romney as the opponent, and I understand that, as Mitt's had some changes of mind on issues, and that can be held against you. As we saw, you know, with John Kerry, that stuff was held against him. And on one side note, I was astonished to see that Mitt actually got 76% of the vote in Massachusetts, because I just didn't think it was going to be that much. And we can go into that a little bit later. But what I never understood is, why would you want to take on a guy who can fund his campaign as much as Mitt can fund his campaign, who's articulate, who's had corporate experience, and I know there's good and bad with that. The guy who saved the Winter Olympics. I don't understand why they see Mitt Romney. What's the perception of Democrats of Mitt Romney that you want him versus a Rick Santorum or Newt Gingrich or whatever?
I think it goes back to that great line of politics is perception, not Napolitan. Not Napolitan. Talk about a Freudian. Joe Napolitan said, politics is not perception, or politics is perception, not reality. And I think that's what a piece of this is, Paul, to a certain degree. You've got a lot of key players in the Democratic establishment, consultants, talking heads, pundits, folks involved in the campaign, strategists, you know, telegraphing, you know, geez, you know, Romney. The reality is that, you know, there is a a disconnect, or I think a perception that's kind of being created and whatnot about that. The Santorum is disconcerting to the Democratic base because of social issues, certain issues and whatnot. But the flip side of that is if it were Santorum, it would create a more solid base for Barack Obama. Those folks who agree with Barack Obama on social issues that disagree with Santorum, you'd have that chasm would just continue to occur, and you'd fire up your base if you're Barack Obama. So I think the reality is they probably really don't want to be dealing with Romney. They're saying that, and it's, you saw what happened in a couple of the states where Democrats were crossing over to vote for Santorum. Santorum actually asked for that help in Pennsylvania and was okay in asking for it because Romney had done the same thing in New Hampshire and had done the same thing 4 years ago when he was running for president. It's intriguing too. In New Hampshire, you had key Democratic activists, coming up from Massachusetts looking for any television camera or microphone they could find to take their shot at Mitt Romney. Didn't happen all by itself. That was kind of orchestrated by folks in the Democratic National Committee and the President's Committee and whatnot, and that's all fair stuff. So I hope I didn't ramble too much with that answer. It's perception. And the perception is, we'd rather take on Romney. Reality, maybe not. He does have got, beyond his own deep pockets, there's a heck of a lot of other deep pockets out there. And we're in this new age of presidential politics now. We've got the super PACs. Like them, dislike them, both sides are going to be using them. And if you got a guy like Ken Adelson out there saying, I like Newt and I gave him $10 million between myself and my wife, but gosh golly gee whiz, when it comes playtime, I'm $100 million in with whoever it is against Barack Obama. And that's just Adelson. Holy moly.
And my plug to those people are, give me your phone number, because you got $100 million to give to a political campaign. God bless you, man. You got a lot of money then. And what's amazing is this campaign, this presidential campaign, is $1 billion campaign when it's all said and done.
Paul, $1 billion for sure. But there's a lot of talk that this goes to the $2 billion range. Before and it's because of what we're talking about right now. It's not just the two presidential candidacies or campaigns. It's not just the Republican nominee and the president. There's all these super PACs. When you add it all in. I remember speaking to a class at...
I thought we were in a recession. That's what
exactly, who has this kind of money? It's amazing what's out there. It's the polarization thing, too. People will contribute to some of these PACs or contribute to organizations that then are contributing to the PACs. This isn't just the Karl Roves of the world and on the Democratic side, the Soroses, et cetera, and whatnot. There's a lot of average, regular folks sending money into PACs that they believe in, that are going to be able to help their candidates. That's why Massachusetts is so interesting right now. This Senate race. I think it was on MSNBC about 4 or 5 months back. I just took a shot in the dark, and I said, they were asking me about it, and I said, I think this is going to be a $30 million race. Now you've got people saying this could be a $60 million race. And from some of the tracking on the dollars that we're watching right now, whether it's for social media, consultants, television, holy moly, I think this could be a $60 million race. And largely why? I think because of what we've seen in the last week or two. Money is coming in from all over the country for both candidates, and some even from outside, for kind of like a validating of that candidate's positions on certain issues and whatnot, whether it be abortion, whether it be women's rights, whether it be, a wide range of, Republican, Democratic, traditional issues. This is almost like back in the day when Republicans would raise significant money nationally just campaigning against Teddy Kennedy. Money would come in from Idaho, money would come in from California. And conversely, that's happening here too against Scott Brown. There are many groups that are sending significant dollars against, Brown's reelection.
And the biggest change, and back in September at a fundraiser that I put together for Senator Brown was that there was a, he talked about this being that his opponents will spend $25 million. It is the #1 seat in the country behind the president's reelection. And, again, in little old Massachusetts, and it's because of what that seat represents to the Democrats, not who's in it. And I find that absolutely amazing that in this state with the electoral votes, that we can generate is that this seat is the focus of the national party, but it is.
I'll tell you.
And I think it's on both sides. I think the Republicans are.
Exactly. Yesterday I did some radio in Ohio about, post Super Tuesday and whatnot, and I found that just as when I did some things recently in Indiana and Illinois, what folks want to talk about is Warren versus Brown. After we get through the big race, the presidential, they want to know what's happening back in Massachusetts. And this really is rock'em sock'em of as a fight as we're being told, Yeah.
All right, so now that as the weather's going to warm up in the Northeast, excuse me, and I fully expect Occupy Wall Street or Occupy events to happen again. Okay, as the weather starts to warm again. Will that have and around the country, because you're seeing some of these protests that have happened and being broken up by the police and so forth, will that have that type of event have an effect on the campaigns, either presidential and U.S. Senate race?
If they happen as they did in a couple of other states where you had Occupy folks just going off the wall, breaking into city halls, damaging public property, folks getting hurt, you know, the pure Occupy group, you know, of the more pure purpose is separate from those folks that are getting involved, infiltrating, becoming a problem. So will it have some impact? It may. It actually may. It depends on where these events happen. And I'm old. You know, I was a kid. I remember 1968. And again, Joe Napolitan, perception, reality. What happened in '68 in some instances? You know, some brilliant strategists on both sides made sure that a convention was grandly disrupted. Certainly, a lot of it happened legitimately. Vietnam, war protesters, others and whatnot there. But you always got folks stoking the fires, playing the game. You'll see a lot of that kind of stuff go on. Because what you need right now to defeat Barack Obama or to defeat Mitt Romney, they need to make their own foibles and stumbles. And if they don't, what do we see go on so often? Just like we're watching these super PACs right now. It's that outside infiltration for that group or whatever to get what it is that they want, what they want to accomplish and whatnot. So I think if it's not an Occupy event, it'll be something like it.
Okay. So my next question is, I mean, when you look at the Warren-Brown race, okay, I mean, it is, you know, you have two people. Obviously, one is, you know, what I would call the intellectual side. You know, the theorist, you know, she worked in the Obama administration, a teacher, that type of thing. And you got a guy, and you got Brown, who's, you know, ran for that seat, ran hard, beat Coakley, who was the definitely the favorite. I mean, and now that, you know, I think Elizabeth Warren is learning lessons from Martha Coakley's campaign, is because she was out at the frozen Fenway, and then, you know, meeting and greeting people like Scott Brown was. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting race, and I know it's a money race, but what about on the ground? What do you see on the ground in terms of those two campaigns?
Interesting. I'll get myself in trouble with this one because I know that, you know, it's Longmeadow, sure, but all politics is local, and I like the gist of this show, that, you know, it's all about good things here. And it's amazing to me how many key political activists live in or come from Longmeadow, who are either in D.C. or Virginia or still here at home. So I'll get myself in trouble with some of this one. What I'm seeing right now is a relaxed organization of Browns, as if this guy had been incumbent for 30 years. It's this relaxed, thoroughbred campaign. Calm, cool, collected, not overreacting on a lot of things, weighing out and assessing where should we be, what do we need to be at, maximizing his time in the hugest way. On the Warren side, I'm seeing, you know, at least this side of Boston. I won't even say this side of Worcester. You know, they're getting their feet wet. They're trying to figure out who's on first, who's on second. And that's a good problem that they're having. The reason they're having that problem is you got so darn many folks on the Democratic side of the column. You know, it's this sheriff, it's that congressperson, it's this member of the House or the Senate and the legislature, that mayor. You got to coordinate all that. That math, I've heard some very good consultants say that the political science of this, the math, benefits Warren. She wins because all these members of Congress are on for re-election right now. Hot races have come along. The Kennedy replaced Barney Frank race. You know, active, strong campaigners like Congressman Neal, who now reach out to a larger district, bringing people out. You know the drift, and all the House and Senate legislative seats that are redistricted. These folks are going to be working hard, all these Democrats, to get reelected. And that has, by some osmosis, will help Elizabeth Warren. If they rely on that science and strategy, she will lose. You can't do that. And then the other part of this is coordinating all that. It's hard work. Brown's got the benefit of being lean, mean, and fleet when it comes to organization. He'll have the money he needs. He'll have the air cover, so to speak. And despite, and I'll be more frank, not a lot of organization, it appears to me, this side of Worcester for Brown. Whereas, again, I'll make that diversion. This side of Worcester for Brown, this side of Boston for Warren, a lot. You know, it's the opposite, polar opposites. But by not, it'll fall into place, I think, for him in the Berkshires and, you know, throughout the new first congressional district. You know, you see him everywhere and smartly using his time. He, out of the blue, he goes to Milano's in the South End. I think it was kind of a throwaway event that evening before, hey, we got a block of time. He wants a sandwich. So where does he go? He goes to Milano's in the South End. Immediately they create a spin out of that he's visiting the tornado-torn area of the South End, and you know, his business has just reopened. And that might sound like small local politics, but he was sharp. He had somebody from CNN with him. It was on national news that night, you know? And for an event that I think was maybe 30 or 35 or 40 people, I don't know if you were at that
tops.
one.
Yep,
really? Okay.
Tops.
You would have thought that he had gone, you know, it was like Caesar coming into Rome or something, you know?
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing. It's going to be an interesting engagement. It's far from over. That's the biggest thing I say, especially on the Democratic side. You know, I've got a lot of folks saying to me, consultants and others, the science is there, the numbers are there, we're going to have the numbers. I don't know. Brown's a different kind of fighter, and his independent appeal is still huge. And we've seen 3 polls in the last week and a half that he's up by 9 points.
Yep.
So,
now I expect there to be Republican challenges, whether how strong they are or not, to a lot of these, you know, because the seats have shifted to a degree, and the districts have shifted. But there are some Democrat challengers now coming out against the incumbent House members. And we haven't seen that in a long time. And it isn't just, you know, Rainbow Party where, you know, they might get 4 or 5% of the vote. These are established state reps or state senators who are saying, maybe I don't want to wait around anymore. And it's, you know, my turn. I'm not gonna wait my turn. On, you know, the districts have changed, and this is my shot. And do you see a lot of that? Do you think that'll happen more throughout the state?
More than the norm, it's occurring. And I think when you take a look, for an example, at Holyoke, Massachusetts, where you've got a storied name in Holyoke politics, Mike Cain, his father, literally someone that would be, you could say, put a statue up for this guy for all the things that his dad has done for Holyoke. A storied name, so to speak, you know. And a chairman, no less, in the House. And yet he's being challenged by another Democrat, Aaron Vega, on the city council. That is unusual. You don't normally see that. And within the party, usually there's conversations that say, oh, wait your time, hang on, and whatnot. But I use that one as an example. You're starting to see some of that. You're seeing Democratic challenges to Democratic incumbents. That doesn't normally happen. Not seeing it so much on the Republican side. Certainly there are so many less Republican incumbents in Massachusetts. But I am seeing it around the country, and am seeing it in congressional races. And I think the one that really got everybody excited, despite, you know, Super Tuesday in the presidential race and everything else going on, Dennis Kucinich losing his seat in Ohio, a storied name no less.
Right.
You know, and a guy who kind of had like a little bit of that, you know, he had that strong liberal base, strong Ohio base, noted for his constituent work, you know, hard worker, doing the constituent stuff like a Congressman Neal. Call Neal's office, you're going to get a call back that day. That same paying attention like Silvio Conti back in the day. And yet he lost his seat. Plus he had that rock star status too, you know. He had the, how do I say it, the intriguing wife that he had married and whatnot, and he was kind of a rock star guy because of the presidential races and whatnot, and he got clocked. That's a wake-up call to a lot of people. Nothing is sacrosanct anymore. Everything is in play. And why? Because whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent, you're feeling it in your wallet right now. You're feeling those gas prices. You're struggling to pay the mortgage and the rest of it. And again, I'm old. I remember Mike Dukakis having it locked up 18 points. And certainly there was the Willie Horton moment, and there was the Bernard Shaw debate moment, you know, and all that. Those were the big hits that came and hit him. But I remember being in Florida during that campaign and watching George Bush, an older man, at the lead of this race, this 5-mile race, the vice president, with a zillion kids all around him running and whatnot. And then we started to see his ads, and he did one really big key thing, that classic line from Bush: Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter. That was shocking. And then he went on to say, especially in the southern states and in his ads, I know what it is to not be able to pay the mortgage. I know what the struggle is to worry about paying the college tuition versus the food bill. And though he was a wealthy guy and came from wealth, there was a time in his life when he was trying to get it together where he was like, oh my God. But he was able to make that connection. That's what this race comes down to, I think, right now. Who can make that connection? Barack Obama, Mitt Romney, Brown, Warren, and then in all these local races. Who is feeling that pain? Not to borrow from Bill Clinton. Clinton watched what Bush did to Dukakis, learned from it, and in '92 did it right back to Bush. I know what that gallon of milk costs, you know. I know what it is to have to go to the supermarket and struggle and all that. Yeah.
And I think we have a very different time here, you know, and the more things change, the more they stay the same type of thing. You know, we're going through economic cycles and so forth, and as a financial advisor, you know, you see firsthand the worry. Not necessarily people, you know, saying I can't live anymore, but the worry that two things: A, I might run out of money in retirement, and B, I might not have anything to help my kids with. And that is real. Even with people who have money, because of, I mean, again, gas going from $2 a gallon to $4 a gallon. You could cut taxes all you want. The impact of that gallon of gasoline, when the federal government tells you inflation is at 3%, it's really at about 5%.
Yeah.
Because they take out food and energy.
Yeah.
Well, you drove here to the studio, and we're going to go eat lunch after.
Yeah.
So the two things we're going to do today aren't counted as part of the inflation rate.
That's right.
So you and you have the demographic of the younger generation moving up. You know, as a father of two daughters in their 20s and a teenage son, is you know, it's a little bit different, and that's why I see a change in both Democrat and Republican. You're getting a group of kids coming through the system now. They're kids, you know, they're young people that are coming through the system that it isn't Democrat and Republican anymore. It's anti the man.
Oh yeah.
And you know, it's the Xbox generation, in my opinion. They when they move into a home, they don't get a phone in the house.
Yeah.
That's, you know, so how do you contact, you know, the robocalls are going to start to drop at some point in time, you know, and it's a very different generation of how they get their information. And I know the social media aspect of these big campaigns are gearing towards that, but I see an anti-establishment generation that is not the Vietnam protest and the anti-establishment, that type of thing. It's just that, you know, you're coming out of college with $150,000 worth of debt.
Yeah.
The best job offer I have is, you know, getting me to $20,000, and I can't afford to pay my college loans. I can't afford to pay my. I'm living with mom and dad because I can't afford a place. I can't afford my car insurance, and and I'm not saying that's, you know, it's not a doom and gloom thing. Don't get me wrong. But you see a different thing coming through the system now that I see it on both ends. You see people that are worried about their kids getting jobs out of college, and then I see retirees who are saying, I don't know if I'm going to have enough money to live on for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Wall Street Journal, Reuters, Financial News, what was it, 3 weeks ago, you know, coming out and saying that 57% of all Americans at the time when they retire will have $15,000 in cash assets. Oh my God. You know, I look at this and I'm saying, God willing that I live past 60, I'm going to be working until I'm 100. It's unbelievable, right? Because of all these obligations we've got to take care of. And sometimes, not just for ourselves, but for other folks who are trying to help out. I had the good fortune to have lunch with you and Fran Tarkenton a couple weeks back. And there was some, you know, Fran Tarkenton, you know, wow, you know, Minnesota Viking, NFL Hall of Fame, Super Bowl ring, you know? I mean, phenomenal guy, incredible business person, wealthy guy. But what he said resonated to me in what I do every day as a political person. He said, you know, the biggest thing right now that I'm advising a lot of folks my age, his age at that, I think he's 72. Is you got to stay in the game. We're not done. It's not easy out. It's not easy retirement, whatever's coming in, because you don't know. With medicine and advances and all this, you don't know how much longer you're going to live, and you don't know what's going to happen to your investments. You've got to stay active. You've got to stay engaged. That's the political message, I think, right now, too. And if you're one of these younger folks at the other end of the spectrum, like you're talking about, they are watching this campaign. They're not as rah-rah, fired up as even we may have seen 4 years ago, and that's not pro or anti-Barack Obama. It's this other thing you're talking about. It's all the same. It's all the same in Washington, and they don't get it, and they don't know what I'm struggling through, or my parents, or my grandparents. Right. You're right. You know, you're right. It's not doom and gloom. It's reality, and we're seeing it in a lot of polling right now. It's beyond just the usual, I'm pissed, I'm fed up, I've had it with Washington, I've had it with the state legislature. It's something else. It's I'm really nervous and worried, and I need to survive, and these folks don't understand that I need to survive.
And I think when you see globally, you know, when you see Greece and Italy and Portugal and Ireland and Spain, and it's, quite frankly, it's not over, you know, and every day the markets are up or down depending on what happens in Greece. Well, beyond Greece, there's still Portugal and Spain and Italy and Ireland and so forth. And then there's our country. Yeah. You know, where you have, you know, it's interesting, in Wisconsin, you have a recall going on right now. Because of what Scott Walker had done with the budget, with the unions and so forth. And, you know, at some point in time, when you keep hearing about sustainability of the budget and the decrease in taxpayer role that's going on, something has got to give. And again, young people are looking at it and saying, can I get a job? You know, I just went through 4 years of college, and I'm looking to be an assistant manager at a car rental place because that's the best thing on the table for me right now. And it's work, but it's hard work, but it's not what you know, they went in for maybe an international business degree, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays in the dynamics of this election. And again, you know, there's a different way to reach that group. And I said, you know, as my comment is that, you know, the 30-year-old and less that's in the basement on the weekend playing video games because they can't afford to go out, you know, and that's what they do. So we're gonna be running out of time. We got about 30 seconds. What do you see what do you see coming up in the next few months in the presidential?
You know, you'll see Romney get better footing as he goes along and gets closer to that delegate count, that magic 1144, and you'll see him continue to do what he's done well, staying on message. The economy, the economy, the economy. What you'll also see him start to work on, gosh golly gee whiz, I'm not an average regular guy. Nope, I've been privileged, I've been fortunate, but I do understand what you're going through, and here's how I'm going to fix your pain. Here's how I'm going to address the things we're talking about, gas, healthcare costs, et cetera, et cetera. You'll see him become a much, much better candidate because you're going to see other players come into his campaign saying, this is a fait accompli, this is the nominee. On the president's side, you're going to see him play, I should not say play, that's an almost disrespectful thing to say that. You're going to see the president as commander-in-chief step up on these gigantic issues. Israel, Iran, what's happening. He has opportunity in this next month just to do his job and do it right and do it correctly and to gain incredible stature and acclaim for himself. But at the same time, that's all great. Remember George Bush when he was president. What he did, what he accomplished, what went on, you know, Iraq, but Kuwait, but still there was the problem, the gas price, the milk price, the rest. He's got to come back and address the domestic issues. Yeah. So you'll see Barack Obama start to take more credit for things that he's done or can perceive to have done. Watch Mitt Romney start to get out of that, and I'll take great risk in saying this, that modest Mormon mindset that he has. I should not say that I did this or I did that. You watch him, or watch others do it for him. You know, what he did to save the Olympics, those kinds of things. What he did on businesses that he did save, so that he can counter the early Republican attacks and the old Kennedy Democratic attacks for himself for having saved some business by, you know, a lot of people losing their jobs. So there's probably more than 30 seconds, but I think that's what you're going to see, the evolution of these two. This will be a grand fight. This is not, you know, the champ, you know, Barack Obama coming up against a lesser, not Republican nominee. On both sides, everybody's going to take this as, this is Frazier Ali. I just don't know if it's 1, 2, or 3 yet.
All right, and with that, I want to thank you for watching The Upside and my guest, Tony Signoli from AL Signoli Associates. You guys have a great day. We'll see you on the next show.